Alright, so we are about to get a rerun banner for the Herta, which is pretty crazy because it feels like she was just here back in 3.0. So today, I want to give a quick recap as to what the Herta does, and then I want to talk about her overall value in the game and whether or not you should be pulling on this rerun banner. Alright, so starting out with the recap of her kit here, rather than going over individual parts of her kit, I do want to focus in on the interpretation stacks that she can put on enemies, because this is at the core of her gameplay. So interpretation can stack up to 42 times on enemies, and every stack is going to increase the amount of damage that the enhanced skill from her will do to them. So for the main target of her attacks, well, since she's erudition, you're going to have main targets and also adjacent targets and just AoE attacks as well. So for the main targets, they're going to get an 8% damage increase per stack of interpretation, and this gets doubled if you have at least 2 erudition characters on the team, including the Herta. And for all of the other enemies that get hit, the side targets, they're going to get a 4% damage bonus per stack on them, with this of course doubling if you have at least 2 erudition characters. So you do get a pretty strong amount of damage increase from that by itself, but as we'll see when we go further down in here, there are going to be some other bonuses as well, which will make this even stronger. Now, to actually apply interpretation, you can do this in a few ways. Firstly, you do apply it through using the skill. The enhanced skill will apply it as well, but upon completing the enhanced skill, it is actually going to reset the interpretation stacks of the main target down to 1. So you do have to keep in mind when you are resetting those to make sure that you can stack them back up before you use the enhanced skill so that you can get the most amount of extra damage from these stacks. Also through her talent, you're also able to apply 25 stacks to one enemy at the start of each wave, and this actually prioritizes elite and boss enemies, which is really good so that you can have the stacks on the enemy that's going to take the longest to kill, so you'll be able to do more damage to them. You also get some other stacks from her traces. Her Ascension 2 trace will apply an extra stack whenever any ally attacks enemies, and the Ascension 4 trace also has some extra stacks, so it'll apply 1 extra stack on the enemy with the highest stacks when attacking them, and also will apply 2 extra stacks with this if there's at least 2 erudition characters on the team. So with all these extra erudition bonuses, you do want to run the Herta with at least 1 other erudition character. And then the last thing I want to talk about for the interpretation stacks is that if at any point does the enemy leave the field or they die in any kind of way, then any interpretation stacks that they have will be transferred to another existing enemy, and this is also going to prioritize elite and boss enemies. So if you have some interpretation stacks on the regular enemies, they will get transferred over to the boss or elite once the regular enemies are defeated, which is pretty nice. Then the other part of her kit that I just want to quickly go over here are her traces, just some other benefits there as well outside of the interpretation stacks. So for her A2 trace, she's able to gain 3 energy per enemy that is hit by any character on the team, which is really good in charging up that ultimate, since the enhanced skill is activated upon using the Herta's ultimate. So getting extra energy there is very nice. And if the main target of the enhanced skill has the maximum of 42 interpretation stacks, the enhanced skill is going to deal an extra 50% damage, which is really nice. Then for the Ascension 4 trace, this actually pairs really well with the Ascension 2 because now the energy regeneration part of it will always count for at minimum 3 enemies. So at the very least, you're getting 9 energy back per any attack that your allies do, which is really nice. And also, if you have at least 2 erudition characters on the team, you're going to have a team-wide 80% crit damage buff as well, which is super good to deal even more damage with the Herta here. And then for the Ascension 6 trace, the Herta is going to be able to gain a stack of Answer every time any stacks of interpretation are applied, and this maxes out at 99 stacks. Each stack of Answer will increase the damage multiplier of the Herta's ultimate by 1%, making this a pretty nice bit of extra damage, especially since these Answer stacks do not get cleared under any circumstance. So you basically just build them up until max and you're going to get some extra damage on the ultimate because of it. So that's really everything for the Herta in terms of her general playstyle and what you need to know. So now let's talk about how good is she right now, which the answer to this one is actually pretty simple. She is still an amazing DPS, one of the best in the game. And I think that because of how generally good her kit is and the way she synergizes with some easy to obtain characters like Remembrance MC, she is probably the best DPS to pick up if you are a new player. And content right now is very like AoE and blast focused, which is amazing for an erudition DPS like the Herta. But I do also want to take note that typically for Honkai Star Rail's like endgame content, they do cater the content towards the newer characters, and we are going to be getting a hunt character with the Fate collab in 3.4. So there might be a possibility that we're going to go more towards either just blast or single target content for a little bit, but there's nothing set in stone yet. But I think even with that, the Herta is still going to be a pretty solid damage dealer overall, and will still be absolutely amazing in pure fiction, because that mode will always be 5 enemies. So now let's talk about whether or not you should pull for the Herta, and I'm going to have both for people who don't have her as well as people who already do have her. So if you don't have the Herta, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think if you're looking for another DPS, or if you've been struggling with some of the endgame content, and if you haven't gotten more recent characters like Castoris, like Maide, and so on and so forth, I think the Herta is an amazing character to pull for, and she's going to be able to help you in a lot of content there. I don't really see any like reasons of things that she does that would make you want to skip her, but I also think it's valid, because I'm also doing this, to skip her to save for something else that you really want. Because like if you really want the Fate collab characters, if you really want Finon, and you're not going to have enough resources to get the Herta and them, I totally get that. And I'm in the same boat for the Fate collab here in all honesty, so that would really be the only thing I see. But the Herta is just such a good character, and I think anyone who gets her is going to see a lot of value there. Now, if you already have the Herta and you're thinking about getting some extra Eidolon, some extra signature light cone for her, I think that when we're comparing E1 and S1, which I typically like to do since it's just only one more thing you have to pull, I think they both have, relatively decent value at the very least, but I think S1 is going to be the better value overall if you can only pull for one other thing. Which I'll get to that, because I think that E2 is going to be probably better than S1, but if you don't have the resources to go all the way, I would definitely go S1. So for the Herta's S1, you get 12% extra crit rate, and anytime you use the ultimate, she's going to be able to get an extra 60% damage on her skills and ultimate for 3 turns, which is really nice. Plus, if you use at least 140 energy with your ultimate, which the Herta does, she's going to be able to recover 1 skill point, which is really good to be able to use that skill point for that enhanced skill, so you won't have any weird situations if your team is very skill point hungry, where you don't have a skill point ready after your ultimate. Then to compare it to her E1, the Herta's E1 is a pretty solid damage increase, because it will calculate an extra 50% of the interpretation stacks on the enemy when taking a look at those damage increases that they give. So if you have the max of 42 stacks on them for the enhanced skill, it's actually going to calculate the damage increase as if they had 63 stacks. So you do get a pretty solid damage increase there for sure. And when the enhanced skill resets the amount of interpretation stacks, it's actually going to reset it to 15 as opposed to 1. So that does lower the amount of time you need to get back up to full stacks, because ideally you want to have the main target at full stacks as much as possible to get the most damage on them. But now to talk about the other notable Eidolons for her, which honestly, E2 is probably the biggest one that people are looking at. So E2 is going to give the Herta an extra use of the enhanced skill, both at the start of battle and after using the ultimate. So that means now whenever you use her ultimate, you get 2 uses of the enhanced skill, which is really good, especially if your team is able to apply a lot of interpretation stacks very quickly. Plus, after every use of the enhanced skill with E2 active, you're going to be able to action forward the Herta by 35%. So she's going to act a lot faster and be able to just do her general gameplay loop of using her skill, then ultimate, then enhanced skill a lot faster. So you're going to see a lot of damage increases and just general speed increases for clearing content with the E2 there. So I think like by far, if you're looking for vertical investment, E2 is probably the most valuable of the earlier ones. Outside of that, E4 isn't really too crazy. It's just a 12% speed buff for any erudition characters on the team. And then for the Herta's E6, which not many players are going to go for, but if you are going to go for that, you're going to get an extra 20% ice res pen. And depending on the amount of enemies on the field, if there's 3 or more, or if there's 2, or if there's 1, you get extra damage multiplier increases for the ultimate to make her better in those like lower enemy fights, which is a nice bonus for being an E6, but again, not something that a lot of people are going to go for, not something that's really needed. So overall, I think the Herta is still an amazing character, and I think anyone who's looking to pull for her on this rerun is going to benefit from it, is going to be happy that they did. But I'd love to hear what you all think about the Herta in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed and want to see more content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But with that, everyone, I will see you all next time.